Welcome to Deadly Clues, where shadows never stay hidden and the past always has a way of resurfacing. Here, we delve into most chilling, dark, and complex mysteries that haunt the darkest corners of human existence. This isn't just about solving crimes, it's about understanding the monsters among us, the one who hide behind normalcy, and the one who never get caught. Tonight's story is one of the most haunting tales in Australian criminal history. A predator who terrorized an entire city for decades. A jogger who wasn't jogging at all, but a hunter, a monster hiding in plain sight. And it took more than 30 years for justice to come. Only justice was a bitter, empty thing. It was too late. Much too late. A city frozen in terror, a predator stalking women from the shadows, and a decade-long pursuit for the face that would finally be unmasked 36 years. The years between the first attack and the moment DNA finally revealed the monstrous face that had eluded the authorities for decades. But by the time the truth was revealed, the man who had left behind a legacy of terror had already slipped through their fingers. He was dead. Canberra was the seat of power in Australia, quiet, controlled and orderly, a city that was built on precision, on control. In the 1980s, it was a place that offered a kind of safety, so it seemed. The streets were lined with rows of illustrious trees, casting long shadows over the bike path where joggers would often run. The quiet haven for exercise and reflection. A perfect place for someone to hide. And it was here, on these very paths, that the nightmare began. The first attack took place in 1985. A woman jogging along the bike path by Lake Burley Griffin was attacked by an unknown man. Her screams were muffled by thick trees. Her body violated, then discarded like trash. She barely escaped with her life. She remembered nothing about her attacker except for his overwhelming strength and the cold emptiness in his eyes. Detective Mark Lewis, leading the investigation at the time, would later recall that initial shock. Canberra had never experienced anything like it. A crime of such violent depravity, yet committed in such a public space. This wasn't the kind of thing that happened in Canberra. It wasn't supposed to happen here. The police dismissed it as an isolated incident, a freak occurrence, but it was only the beginning. As the week passed, another woman came forward, then another. Each of them had been attacked on the same bike path. Each described a man who was tall, athletic, and frighteningly calm. A predator who knew exactly how to overpower them. The attacks continued. Women, along in the early hours of the morning or late at night, were approached by the same predator, the same scenario playing out every time. One victim, Anne, was found hours after the attack, disoriented and physically battered. Her body crumbled beneath a bush. Her story was disturbingly similar. A man, cold, silent, methodical, he would surprise them from behind, overpower them, then disappear without a trace. Each attack felt like it was planned with the precision that made it nearly impossible for the police to catch him. The woman who survived could never offer a detailed description. The only remembered fingers at their throat, gripping tight and pulling them into darkness. Detective Lewis could feel the panic growing. Canberra wasn't just terrified, it was paralyzed. The city, once known for its quiet beauty, was now a place of nightmares. By 1987, the attacks had been reported. Each attack was eerily similar, but with each new victim, the police felt further from the truth. There were no witnesses, no clues, just the victims' trauma, their fear etched into every word of their testimony. The police began to notice something even more chilling. This wasn't the work of a man who was just looking for a victim. No. This was the work of someone hunting. But the police were running out of time. The attacks were becoming more frequent. The fear that had spread throughout the city was palpable. People spoke in hushed tones. Neighbors became suspicious of each other. It wasn't long before the terror struck too close to home for the police. Detective Mark Lewis's wife was attacked. She had been jogging on one of the city's well-known trails. The Jogger Rapist hasn't just been stalking women. He had made his way into the hearts of the law enforcement officers who were already struggling to solve the case. But she survived. Thanks to her training and quick thinking, she couldn't remember his face. She only knew that the predator had been near. Years passed. As time went on, the police gave up on finding the man responsible for the attack. Canberra moved on, and the case was buried under the weight of new investigations and cases. Then in 2020, DNA technology made its greatest advancement. A breakthrough in forensic science finally gave police a new hope: familiar DNA testing. The team at Canberra Police Department began responding cold cases, testing all the crime scene DNA against the national database. With that advancement in DNA matching, they discovered Kate Sims, a name buried in family tree of a relative who had been arrested for unrelated charges. Sims had never been a suspect in the case. There were no previous connection to the attacks, but with this new lead, authorities did what they had never thought possible. They tested his DNA. The results were nothing short of chilling. Kate Sims was the Jogger Rapist. But there was haunting twist. By the time authorities connect Sims to the crimes, she had already passed away. The monster that had haunted Canberra Street for so long was already dead. Kate Sims had been living in the city all along, undetected, unnoticed, a man who had blended into the crowd of decades. He had lived quietly, even marrying, having children, and growing older. But he was never caught for his crimes. The woman who had suffered never had the satisfaction of seeing him brought to justice. When news of Sim's identity broke, there was overwhelming scene of empathy. The woman who had been attacked didn't feel vindicated. They didn't feel relief. Instead, they felt betrayal by time itself. Justice, they realized, that had come too late. The system that had failed them, the police that couldn't stop him in 1980 now felt like a mockery. What they had wanted What they had desperately needed was closure. They wanted to confront their attacker, to face the monster who had stolen their peace but since had already slipped away into grave. For those victims, there would be no courtroom battle, no trial, no justice, only the cold knowledge that their predator was dead. And as the year passed, the city of Canberra would never forget the terrifying truth. The shadow that haunted them was not a man of flesh and blood. It was a ghost, a creature of terror and silence. The nightmare is over, but the scars remain. Deadly Clues bring you these stories because the darkness will never go away until we face it, until we expose it. Subscribe to Deadly Clues for more untold stories. Where darkness never stays in the past, where the shadow always comes back. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.